I'm definitely in favor of revitalizing the neighborhoods that we have, for sure. You know, I'm not opposed to development, but I really feel like we've done a lot of new development. I think we can pause on it and focus on the neighborhoods that we have. So I'm definitely for the idea of refocusing some of that to our existing neighborhoods.
The areas in downtown Corpus Christi that are experiencing growth are very important to our community, and I've been a big supporter of that. I work to help get the county to approve the downtown TERS and to join that TERS. And the city has created other TERS around our community to help with development. But we can't forget our existing neighborhoods. And as I said before, it's important for the city to make sure that we're providing the services in those neighborhoods. For example, our residential street issue has not effectively been addressed by the city council. We've addressed our arterial problems throughout the city. We've addressed the major roads throughout our city. We have come up with funding sources for that, but we have not come up with a funding source to help solve our $900 million problem with residential streets. And so we need to do that. And we need to make sure we're providing for that before we go out and put big money into other projects. There's going to be a lot of discussion about that. And I think it's vitally important that we take care of what we have and provide the services we're supposed to. If you're paying 100% of your taxes, then you should be expecting 100% services back from the city. And the city falls short of that a lot of times. So this will be something I'll be, I'm a pro-growth guy. There's no doubt about that. And I'll be all for pro-growth. But we cannot forget about our existing subdivisions, neighborhoods, and our infrastructure that goes along with those.
Better utilizing what we already have. Now, I don't want anybody to misunderstand. My philosophy is a community either grows and expands, which results in a fairly good quality of life, or a community dies, and that results in a poor quality of life. So you always want to be growing, but we need to grow at a pace. I go back to the infrastructure. I'm familiar with that. That infrastructure needs to catch up because we got lots of problems putting in new subdivisions and new streets when we can't even take care of the streets we've got. We do want to grow, but at a pace that our infrastructure could catch up. And the other way I look at it is that you first take care of what you have, and then you look at adding something new. That is, look at downtown, redevelop downtown for the type of business there. Don't go out on the south side or out in Cal Allen and try to do something there. We first take care of what we already have.
You got to do both, right? But you can't have one without the other. The thing about the new developments is the new developments creates new tax base, right? So say you've got these fields out on the south side that they're putting new neighborhoods in, building new houses. Well, that one giant lot that was getting taxed, with an agricultural exemption, basically not having any taxes, when you put all those homes on it on a neighborhood, that creates more of a tax base so that we can get tax money from those new homes. With that tax money, we can use that in the existing neighborhoods to fix the streets, to fix the sidewalks, because we're here for all the citizens, whether they're in old neighborhoods or new neighborhoods. But the two of those things have to work in conjunction with one another, because like I said, we need the new neighborhoods for the new tax money. But with that tax money, we need to improve what we have in the older neighborhoods, because again, it goes back to quality of life, and we want to make the quality of life better here for everyone.
I believe that infill development is crucial to a community's growth, because it doesn't necessarily always cost as much as running brand new lines for everything everywhere. So I think that as far as our district is concerned, two things. One, I'm excited about the fact that they're completed the Staples project up to Castores, and they're now going to begin work on Castores, I believe, to Baldwin is going to be the next phase. So that's going to be a huge project for our district. Additionally, there's the Bayside development plan. So making sure that we have plenty of input from District 2 and the residents of District 2, because a large part of District 2 is involved in that plan, is going to be key to ensuring that our district, or this district, gets its fair share of economic development opportunities, because there are going to be plenty of them as downtown begins to bridge with some of the other neighborhoods that have seen significant growth.
Well, during my career, I have been in the financial services for 24 years. During my career, I was also a home builder, and I developed 2 subdivisions. So I'm very, very familiar with the affordable housing program. I'm very familiar in helping people achieve that American dream and helping them feel really good about providing for their families. I agree, there is a lot of growth going on in areas, because I think a lot of times that growth is happening because of the perception of the hype of the buildup of how great it is to live in specific areas, without giving a whole lot of thought to how much congestion we're already dealing with in those areas. There are a lot of beautiful parts of Corpus Christi, and while a lot of people want to talk about building within their neighborhoods, we did at one time have the infill lot program where we were building houses in existing neighborhoods. Now, there's good and bad with that. The good thing is that it definitely takes an empty lot and turns it into a beautiful home where someone can live. But at the same time, it also impacts everybody around them. It affects their appraisal values on their homes, and that might not make people very happy either, you know. So we definitely need to find a balance and areas that can be improved throughout the whole city. But first, I think before we start building and developing residential or commercial areas in specific neighborhoods, we really need to take a look at the infrastructure in those areas first to make sure that that infrastructure can support new development in that area. And so before I talk about, you know, hey, let's go do something in, District 2 or District 1, I want to take a look at, well, I want to make sure we don't band-aid anything before we put something new, because all we're doing is we're creating a bigger problem in the future and costing people like you and me more money to have to fix a problem that we should have addressed at the onset.
I think being on a council prior to, it's important that we, again, I have to go back to the prioritizing city spending. We have to keep it in the much areas of need, public safety being one, streets, infrastructure, and housing affordability. I think there are some good programs for infill, but in order for us to spur that, we have to, with the industry, we need to make sure we improve the quality of life here in Corpus Christi. So first and foremost, the public safety has to happen. Then the construction and everything else kind of comes into play. 1 in 5, again, it's all representative because it just based on where the need was. But we were in my council 2014, 2016, we were real pivotal on the residential street improvement. Now they do have the funding. They're starting to vamp that up a little bit to start fixing some of these streets. We did the first pilot program of the Ralston Street that was said to never be done, and I know that was championed by the residents here of Lindale, and we kind of just carried that torch to make it actually happen. 89% of the streets in District 2 were dilapidated, and being a former council member, that was one of my big goal was to make sure we champion those things. So now we're at a point where we just need to make sure we continue the schedule, but somehow revamp that schedule to where, because the funding is already available with the bonds and the current repair projects or schedules. But in order to get that completed a lot sooner, I think we have to have our bidding process looked at. Again, the prioritization, the policies, the procedures need to be revamped so that we could actually have good qualified small contractors to get some of these with good performance records can help alleviate a lot of this workload instead of having these larger contractors. And then we'll be able to start seeing streets done a lot faster in all areas, not just for 1 and 5. But moving to an at-large seat or the candidacy for an at-large seat, those would be my focus. And of course, my heart is still in District 2. That's where I live. That's where I was born and raised. And that's still going to be one of my most important topics. But again, we definitely need to fix the streets. And there, like I said, we've already implemented enough funding mechanisms that we just need to start getting it done. And hopefully the neighbors can see that all areas in Corpus Christi and not just certain districts, 1 or 5. But downtown is much needed. You know, again, not being the heart of the city, but most people do come to a city of our size and want to make sure that they have somewhere to go. And downtown most of the time is a viable place. And for a long time, Corpus Christi has been a need of a spur of some type in the downtown area.
Well, what's going on right now in District 1, that's mainly the downtown area, what they're trying to develop. They see tourism. Let's bring more tourists in, and then we can get more money. Same thing for the south side, District 5. We have the mall, restaurants. That's where everybody goes. It's either downtown or the south side. But the thing is, there's people that live here within Corpus Christi, within the whole city. All the districts are important. That's the reason why I'm running for city council at large, because every area of Corpus Christi is important. And plus, there are people that live here. They're spending money too. They want to enjoy Corpus Christi. They want to have good roads, you know. They want to have good drinking water and address the people that are homeless. You know, those are more important. We need to fix and maintain instead of trying to take on new projects that could cause future problems. And that's what's going on with here in Corpus Christi. We have projects all over Corpus Christi. Instead of going on one area, finishing it, and going on to the next. We need to worry about the people here in Corpus Christi first, because tourism is going to come. Because, you know, we have beautiful waters and people are going to come regardless. But what we need to do is fix and make Christi happy in that way.
Well, I'm definitely for doing just that. Talking about closing those loopholes and tightening our grip a little bit. We have become lax. Those IDAs really, they really made our grip on the industry lax. And so I feel like we need to assert a sense of control. This is our city, and we do not want the industry that's here is doing good. It's providing jobs, and we understand that. I understand that. I think all the candidates understand that. But at some point, we can't let the environment suffer for it. And we need to make sure that they are abiding by whatever rules and regulations that are in place. We are very aware of the fact that we have just recently been sued by the EPA. So we need to tackle that because we want to keep our air and our bays clean. We do, and everybody enjoys fishing. You know, I myself am not an avid fisher, but I know plenty of people who love to fish, and I know plenty of people who like to be outdoors. We want to keep our area clean, but we do also recognize that we need to work with them because they are giving that economic boost as far as jobs, money, financially, but we do need to tighten our grip a little bit. And I don't think it's the end of the world. I think it can be done. I don't think the answer is to continue being lax about it. So I'm definitely for tightening our grip when we start negotiating again with those IDAs?
First off, I want to say, I'm like I said, I'm pro-growth. I'm pro-industry. I was in the petroleum industry, or the oil and gas exploration business, for almost 40 years. So I understand that side of the business. I understand the corporate world. But having said that, I will tell you, as county commissioner, all of the major refineries that exist in Corpus Christi were located in my county commissioner precinct. So I had to have a working relationship with those industries. And I had a clear understanding with them. We were going to do everything we could to help their businesses, but we expected them to be good neighbors. And when I say good neighbors, we expected them to do things that were not going to cost the citizens of this community more than their fair share of providing the services to those industries that they need. And that also they were going to be environmentally friendly to our community. I grew up in the Donna Park subdivision, which is immediately in front of the refinery road. American Smelting used to be in my backyard. And I will tell you, when I was growing up, there was no EPA, there was no TCEQ, there was none of that. And what we all breathed and smelled was not pleasant and certainly not healthy. So they have made great strides in providing an environmentally friendly community. When I was on the school board, I was one of the advocates that got the industries to come in and install the equipment around our community that would monitor the air quality all the time. And that program has taken sort of a backseat. I would like to see that program re-implemented and put back to where it was, to where we have air monitors in our neighborhoods surrounding Refinery Road, so that we know exactly what's coming out of those refineries at all the time. So I fully expect them to be good neighbors and to provide the environment that we all expect. Now, with respect to the industrial district agreements, if I'm fortunate enough to be around in 2025 when those expires, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to be intimately involved in the renegotiation of those. I think there is plenty of room for some improvements in those agreements. And so I'm a strong business person. I know what a good deal looks like, and I know what a bad deal looks like. So you can bet I'll be representing this community's best interest on both sides. I think we have to be fair to our industrial partners, but they have to be fair to us as well.
First, I want to start off with health. Now, I'm a chemical engineer, and there are some things I can't say exactly because I'm not out at some of the refineries in the areas that you're talking about. But I do know EPA, at least up to now, has had strict emission standards that are very tedious. One of the problems you have when you talk about public health is something called fugitive emissions. That's those little leaky things around gaskets and pump seals and so forth. And there are strict regulations on controlling those kinds of emissions, particularly with stack emissions. I am not uncomfortable at all driving by a refinery or living near a refinery. Actually, when I lived in Michigan, I lived about 3 miles from the chemical plant I worked at, or 2 miles. It was a 5-minute drive from the chemical plant, and I had no problems whatsoever, but I knew what was being done to contain the emissions. But a lot of other people, I don't think, give enough credit to another aspect in protecting people's health, and that's the OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. They have very stringent rules to protect workers at a plant site. Well, if you protect the workers at the plant site, by default, you're also protecting the people around the facilities. Now, I'm saying that I want people, now I gotta be honest, there is one facility on the harbor, my red flags go up every time I hear it, but I'm not gonna name which one it is, that I do have some concerns with. But relative to emissions for the general public, Based on everything I know, I don't really see that as a problem or an issue. Now, the point on the tax abatements with those industries along the ship channel, I believe that's what you're referring to. There are a couple of things some people need to understand is that those industries have their own security and they have their own fire department. Yeah, they have I forget the term, but they have a terminal with several fire trucks with people specifically trained to fight fires at the refineries or at these chemical plants. Trust me, a fire at a chemical plant is a whole lot different than a fire in a building. And so they have people specifically trained. Now, when you start talking about tax abatements, is it fair to have industry pay for things like the fire department and the police department, which are the city services they don't use? Or I don't want to say they don't use it. I did make some inquiries with one of my contacts in industry I wanted to get a specific answer. Well, what taxes do they pay? I do know they pay things like school tax and county tax. But I couldn't get some specific numbers. My belief, and I'm just saying this is a belief as best as I could get up with, the only tax relief they are getting is the tax on the city, relative to the city. But they do pay taxes for the county and for the school district. But I couldn't get a specific numbers. I tried, and I couldn't get a very definitive, other than I know they have their own security procedures. I couldn't get information. Okay, if you have a problem, who gets involved, the sheriff's department or the city department? When you talk about that 2025, those are the kind of things I would be looking into is, okay, just what services do you not take from the city that they would end up being paid for? Because that wouldn't be fair. Now, that's all I can say on that. I've looked into it. They do pay taxes, but not all the taxes. But they also don't get all the services either. But I'd need to get better clarification on those issues before becoming very, this is what we're going to do. This is the contract. I need more information. As I say, I've tried to get some information. I've gotten a little bit, but not enough to take a firm stance yet. The only other thing I would like to point out, people's concern, I work over in Ingleside, or I used to work over there. The city of Corpus Christi annexed 3 industrial plants over in Portland, Nueces, in San Patricio County. There's no way in hell the city is going to be able to provide any city services to those industries, but they are still paying city taxes. I look on it on all sides of it. How are you going to send a fire department across the bridge through Portland around to those industries if they need the fire department? And I don't know if the city police officers have authority, it would have the authority to go over in San Patricio County to investigate something, some crime or something on the industrial sites over there in San Patricio County. But it happened and it's the way it is. I just want people to be aware of that other side of the issue.
No, I agree with that. I think I understand abatements to attract businesses in the beginning, but I think that's what they're for. Once the businesses are here and established, I think that the purposes for the abatements has gone also. I'm here because of the quality of life and things to do here. I still want to be able to enjoy the beaches, enjoy the bay, fish. I still want to be able to do those things. And I don't want Corpus Christi to become, I don't know if I should say this, but I don't want to become like what Portland has become with the industry there and how that's affecting things in that area. I want Corpus to stay Corpus.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely an opportunity to have that discussion. The last time that the IDAs came up for renegotiation and renewal, there was in fact a bump in that IDA consideration that we used for roads and earmarked it for roads. And, I think that being the big Achilles heel, the residential road issue, you have the EPA, the city got sued by the EPA 2 weeks ago. And so we're looking at having to spend $700 million in that wastewater infrastructure over the course of the next 15 years. So the reality is that we can't go back and change what has been done in councils before us to get us to where we are. But I think that we have to use this opportunity to make sure that the industrial ratepayers are paying their fair share of what it's going to cost to get us whole again. And so I absolutely do support a renegotiation of these agreements, but in favor of the taxpayers.
There has been so much discussion about climate change and everything that's going on and how it's affecting the climate and the environment. I believe that we have been very generous with some of the perks that industry has received. I don't know that we have been that generous with the citizens of this city, that although the industry has received the benefits of that, they've received those benefits at a cost to our citizens. However they want to perceive that, again, sometimes I think so many things presented to the city of Corpus Christi are all about presentation and perception. Industry does play a vital part in our city and does a lot of things for us in the way of having jobs for our citizens, and very good paying jobs, by the way, which we all appreciate very much. But I do think that we have to reevaluate those programs very carefully. Of course, that's coming up in years. I may be elected, I may not be sitting there. I promise you, if I am sitting there, having a numbers background, I'm definitely going to take a look at that. But I am not going to be generous or as generous without my priority being the citizens of Corpus Christi first. If there is a benefit to the citizens of Corpus Christi and there is a mutual benefit to industry, that's one thing. But my responsibility, my fiduciary responsibility, is to the citizens of Corpus Christi first.
I think it is important that you look at that industrial agreement. We've talked about taxes and building a bigger tax base so that we could lessen the burden on our taxpayers like yourselves. Again, once we attract new residents, we expand our tax base. We help relieve some of the tax burden on our taxpayers. But it's important that the quality of life, again, with the air and the water, those are EPA issues. EPA is supposed to have a real standard on those type of things. And I think it's important as a city, we need to look at those to make sure we're monitoring them very well. TCQ, those kind of things. I know that desal is a new thing coming up. Before we go off and build something like that, it needs to be very looked at very closely, as opposed and how it's going to affect the ecological system and before we go out and build something like that. So we need to be very, we need to do our due diligence before we jump on anything like that. But as far as the tax on the industrial agreement, I agree. I think there are some loopholes that need to be looked at, and we definitely need to get more money for our city so that we can definitely keep, the momentum going where we're building and helping our citizens first, more than what we're making off it. Because again, it was something that was agreed a long time ago, and 2025 is just around the corner. I never thought I'd be saying this, but 2025 is just around the corner, and it's important that we do look at those industrial agreements a lot closer to help the city and help the citizens.
To address the IDAs, which is industrial district agreements, what's happening with that is that started about 35 years ago here in Corpus Christi, Texas. And basically what it is heavy industry. It's refineries. They're not paying their fair share of taxes at all. It seems like the taxpayers are taking a blunt of Corpus Christi taxes, and then that's just not fair. You know, with the agreements coming up in 2025, what we need to do to close the loophole is have them to pay their fair share of taxes. Like for example, the city council, they voted 9-0 to have a desalination plant. And that's basically going to benefit the refineries and not citizens. They won't have to pay any more taxes on that, but the taxpayers are going to have to pay more taxes on that because their water bill and the water rate is going to go up. And I don't think that's fair to the taxpayer. I mean, how do you have a big businesses come in here and profit off the taxpayers' money? It doesn't make sense to me. And then, you know, these refineries, they're subsidized by the government, and they used to pay 35%, I think, taxes, and now it's down to 22%. And I'm not talking about local taxes. But my problem is, you know, they're making too much money off of taxpayers' money. It doesn't make sense to build a desal plant and the taxpayers have to pay for it. Plus, you know, it harms our environment. You know, I'm not in agreement to a desal plant. I mean, we just got sued by the Environmental Protection Agency for throwing sewer water or backup sewer into our Corpus Christi Bay. And now they want to build a desal plant that can put more toxins in our bay or other parts of our water. What's going to happen to our fish life? You know, what's going to happen to plant life? You know, it's going to die, you know, and then they haven't done any studies how it's going to hurt human life. All they're seeing is dollars, but it's not to the benefit of the citizens. It's to benefit to big business, and it just needs to stop.